There is so much going on in our world, it's hard to even talk about it all. But I found this headline pretty interesting because it just speaks to a few different things and just compels us to think our way through some issues. We need the Spirit of the Lord to guide us in all of our decisions. You folks might think it's strange for us to discern the times a bit and talk about such things, but Neil, we need to apply Scripture to all of life. Mm-hmm. And we need to be led by the Spirit of God in our decisions and so forth. And we need the right perspective on things. I'm not trying to say everything that everybody does is wrong, but sometimes the things we do, they're pretty obviously out of place, or they might be terribly unwise. And then sometimes they are just flat out wrong, okay? We understand that too. But as you all know, the hurricane barreled through Florida and South Carolina last week, and a lot of destruction in its path. But there was this encouraging story. President Biden, he called and thanked a Coast Guard swimmer for saving lives in Florida in the Florida hurricane. But the headline says this same hero will be kicked out in days for being unvaxxed. So President Biden personally called Coast Guard swimmer AST2 Zach Lesh for his heroism in saving an elderly couple and their dog last week off Fort Myers, Florida. Lesh is being held as a hero along with the rest of his crew, and rightfully so. However, Lesh was set to sit down with his chain of command and receive his impending involuntary discharge from the Coast Guard. He, along with 4 other rescue swimmers at Air Station Clearwater, are unvaccinated. Lesh submitted a religious accommodation, RA, to the Coast Guard, but it was denied. The Coast Guard is already under strength in regards to rescue swimmers, plus the training is very difficult, has an incredibly high attrition rate, but they're going to let them go, evidently. At least that's what it looks like. Hopefully that's changed. I hope it's changed by now. But anyway, if Hurricane Ian had arrived only 2 weeks later, Lesh may have already been given his discharge date. As it stands, he was too vital to the Coast Guard's operations, and the people whose lives he saved on Thursday can readily attest to that. The irony of President Biden calling to congratulate and thank Lesh as a hero, yet he's currently on the chopping block and set to be discharged in the not-too-distant future, is stark. So there you go. Here's some good news, though, that to follow that up in regard to the Navy and the Marines. It's being reported in various sources earlier in September that Trident Order Number 12 was quietly canceled by the U.S. Navy. Trident Order Number 12 disqualified SEALs seeking religious exemptions from the COVID-19 vaccine. SEALs seeking the exemption would be barred from training, traveling for deployment, and conducting other standard business, thus making them undeployable. Now the U.S. Marine Corps has announced changes to their policies. Marines who decline the COVID vaccine for religious reasons will no longer be punished. The New York Post reports that the administrative order also states that a Marine's vaccination status cannot be used against them in fitness reports or other performance evaluations. Folks, help me out here. We got one branch of our government saying, we're not going to require that. And then you turn around, you got your Coast Guard about ready to kick some people out that are absolutely heroes, do some humongous work for the country, and they're going to be discharged. What is this, the left hand not knowing what the right hand? Do we have one Department of Defense? Aren't they all under that umbrella? There's no reason for this confusion. This is old news. This vax mandate needs to be dispelled. It needs to be gone from all branches of the military, and it's kind of ridiculous. But the beat goes on. Neil, help me. I can't understand these things.
No, I don't understand it. I mean, as far as, especially when it comes to national security, and again, from the outset of everything, 2.5 years ago or more, the one that has, as a general rule, they've eased those the CDC and everybody's recommendations. They've eased all of that now, anyways. So why are they still holding on to the other? But from the very beginning, these are likely. Now, I know they were saying we lost a lot of senior officials as well in some of these defense areas. But these guys that are out there, I mean, you're talking Navy SEALs and Coast Guard swimmers. These are some of the fittest people probably on the planet, you know, and they're at a very low risk to begin with because of just their general fitness levels to begin with.
Well, that's a good point. There's a lot of water under the bridge now. We know a lot. And there is no reason for these vax mandates on any front, anywhere in the country. In our military, some of our teachers and medical professionals across the country still being harassed by this. There's no reason for it. Now, I just read something that I'm going to talk about on the air. This is just information. It ought to be widespread. It's not like I'm sharing something that thousands, perhaps a few million other people don't know. We just got to get the word out. There was a Freedom of Information Act that had been put in place by a particular group, and it finally went through, and the CDC has been compelled to release some information. It's pretty eye-opening, the damage done by this vaccination. We'll get to the details. Why wasn't they releasing this data? This is our government. This should be totally transparent. They're answerable to the people of the United States, unless, of course, we now have a Marxist government, or about half of it's Marxist communism. I don't know. But as I said here, from my perspective, our government's still accountable to the people. At least they're supposed to be. And why do we not have transparency? These things it's just a matter of record. Data's data. If you got a vaccine that's hurting people and it's not trustworthy and it ought to be pulled from the market, then the data speaks for itself. This is really getting to be old news, at least to me anyway, but to millions of Americans it's not such old news. And they're still promoting this thing like it's going to be some big help to people. There's so much risk in it. And it's so well known now. Doctors are talking about it, but doctors are still at risk of losing their license for even speaking about the thing. This has got to stop. Tell me again. Now, I got to ask folks, I'm asking Neil all the time where I'm wrong. He's younger than I am. He's got a different perspective. Help me out. Where am I missing it?
No, I don't think you are. I mean, and from the beginning, my issue has been there's been a lack of open dialogue.
Yes.
If anybody disagrees with one agenda or one thought process, it's immediately just silenced or attempted to silence. That's a lot harder to do in the world we live in now, which is a good thing. But that, to me, is the issue. They've got one thing, and right or wrong, they want to, certain people apparently want to move forward with that, regardless of, like you said, if there's a qualified, especially somebody who's an epidemiologist or a physician or whatever, and we know that there are a lot of these stories, and they might have a legitimate disagreement with somebody. Have the conversation is what I would say.
Well, that's a very legitimate point. That's the way it used to be. We just converse, and if something wasn't deemed safe, it wasn't released to the general public so quickly. Mm-hmm. And if it was, it'd be pulled. Mm-hmm. We have done that before. Our government has pulled things before. Say, hey, this isn't going well. Right out the gate, this isn't going so good. Let's pull it back. This is a global reality. Now, we Christians, we read a lot, and we're studying our Bible, and we have some feelings about some various things as far as the spirit of what's going on. And certainly we know we're in a battle for the heart and soul of America. We understand that. But down on a practical level, folks, this has got to stop. None of our heroes should be dismissed from the military because they are not taking a vaccine because of religious exemption. They shouldn't be dismissed. There's no way. No doctor should be under the gun because, oh boy, if I speak out too much or if I'll lose my life. That should not happen. The science is not settled on this. Matter of fact, when somebody starts talking about, well, the science is settled, that's not true under any circumstance. The very nature of observational science is things are continually being tested. Mm-hmm. And some things that we've accepted for a while that might be doing pretty good, we might find out down the road from additional study and input that, you know what, we can do that better. We got to change this a little bit. Science is not just settled. It's a constant learning process. And perhaps there's something good that can come out of this mess yet, but there's too much mess, and it needs to be pulled back. Of course, folks, there's a lot of money involved, and that might explain a lot right there.